Hi everyone, how are you doing? This is Christoph here speaking from the Bitcoin Design account.
Howdy, howdy.
Hey, Christoph.
Hi there.
Everybody's so quiet. Are you deeply thinking about what this year brought and what the next year will bring?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking about, actually.
Awesome.
It has been a good year, I think, especially for this community. It's kind of reflecting on it. We should do an end of year graphic. I think that'd be really fun. I can help take that on.
I'm going to pin the newsletter at the top. There are a few bits in the newsletter um, about this. If I can figure it out, just a sec.
Hey everyone, how you doing?
Yeah, I don't know how to Twitter either, to be honest.
So, for those of you who didn't see any posts in Slack or on Twitter, Dulce is going to be kicking us off with some awesome ideas about engagement and onboarding new community members. Basically, when we chatted, it was like a quick, people are really excited to join and get involved, but it kind of dies off from there. And it's not really a matter of not wanting to. People maybe don't know where to go next. So she had some great ideas about maybe videos or different mediums in which we could introduce people to communities and projects and open source work that we'd like to see get done.
That sounds wonderful. It'll be interesting to see what ideas you have
Yeah,
for the community.
I want to say first also, like I agree with Patricia, like this year has been so awesome for all the community. And I don't know, all the work that everybody is doing is amazing. And like a big fan of each of you guys. Like I have so much respect and admiration for all the Bitcoin design community. Like you really rocks, guys. Like I wish we can have these events in person because it will be a big celebration. Like it was a great year for everyone.
Yeah, totally agree. And we're a few minutes in. If you guys want to start, we can just kind of kick it off with Dulce right now. And I know she had put together a doc. Maybe we could share that on Slack later. It's a little hard with this format. We could, if you want to post it up, Dulce, we could also post it in here. If not, we can just share it on Slack too. But if you want to get going,
Yeah.
let's do it.
Okay. Yeah. First of all, like I said, I'm a big fan of each one of you, and I think the work you has been doing is amazing. Onboarding Bitcoin communities, studying the user flow in different wallets, like we are working for the next billion user is super important. And the proposal that I bring to the table is to improve the onboarding of the members of this community, the Bitcoin design community. Um, and my motivation is to make them feel welcome and valued to everyone. And I have some experience with communities. I run a Latino communities. We are 10,000 in Slack. We are top 10 Slack communities in the States. And one of the things we do, like it's already tested and proven, is we do new member, like mixer for new members every week, but also we can do every 2 week. The idea is like new members can talk to each other, introduce, and talk with other old members of the community. This is a great idea because um, it removes the isolation. Like you don't feel like, oh, you just arrived to a community, but you never talk with nobody. That it's you have to. We want to remove this feeling, and we want to make everybody welcome, and that is going to bring a lot of diversity and more contributors. The second idea is a proposal is creating a welcoming video where basically we explain already what is in the meta repository, like how to get involved, like how to participate. We can even, we were talking in the Slack channel, like the project management, what are the different projects we have, and how people can contribute. And the third one, in this conversation with Patricia, we're talking about the different personas in our community. We have engineers who became designers, but also we have people who jump to learn into the Slack. But there is also few members that are between jobs, or they quit their jobs to work full time in Bitcoin. And for this specific case, like our members who are eager to work full time in Bitcoin, I think we need to do a specific path to speed up their participation. Like, and that happened a lot in the in Bitcoin core community. Like the developers, if somebody like is really with a lot of energy and commitment, this person is kind of start working with another more senior developer. This is what I saw in Bitcoin Core, like somebody kind of mentor another person. It's not something formal, it's very informal, but I think that can speed up the participation and the contribution for people who are between jobs, or people who quit their jobs, or people who have part-time jobs or freelancer. I think this is like the first three ideas to make everybody feel welcome. As a result, that is going to improve our engagement, retention, but also the community is going to be more decentralized. We have the numbers show we have a specific demographic for specific countries, and we start doing more welcoming for everyone, even if they don't speak English. For example, Patricia and we already create, I create 2 channels. One is for Latinos, for people who speak Spanish. Another is for linguistic, when you don't speak, like you are doing something in French or Arabic, you need somebody that can help you, that speak the same language to you. Then the idea is to have a beautiful community, more diverse next year, because I think we have to keep thinking in the next billion users of Bitcoin. This in terms of feel everybody welcome and value, and learn from the people who has more experience will be amazing. What do you think, guys? And Patricia, do you want to say something else?
I mean, I would echo all the things you're saying. I think they're super valuable. Sometimes people DM me about what to do and how to get started on projects, and honestly, I think everyone brings something different. You don't have to be an amazing designer if you speak the same language and can communicate what we're doing to people. Like, more than happy to get different channels going for some of the main languages we've left out so far. So that's going to be an ongoing challenge, and we'll work on that in the upcoming year. I think we were talking about getting the design guide a bit more accessible in that regard. But I'm super happy you brought this up. So if anybody has any comments, or you want to raise your hand, speak. I mean, this is a community call. Anyone who's a speaker, they either raise their hand or we invited them, but everybody can participate here. So I'm super curious about everyone else's thoughts too. Thank you for sharing that, Dulce.
Yeah, happy to listen to everybody talk thoughts or questions. Like, super happy. And how do you feel, for example, Stephen, or other people with more experience, that are the people with more seniority in the community, feel maybe being sometimes mentors, or if you have any thoughts about it.
Yeah, I'm glad that you started the Latinas channel on Slack. That was one thing I was mentioning to some people after I returned from El Salvador. That just, I feel like we need a Spanish speaking channel. So I think that's really good. And yeah, I think the idea of some kind of onboarding video would be helpful. Personally, I'm the kind of person that when I actively resist watching videos. Like, if somebody has like a video on their website, I actively resist watching it. I just want to like read and take in the information as quickly as possible. But other people are completely opposite. Other people will like watch the video and actively resist reading things. So different types of users. So I think an onboarding video could be very helpful. And I think just another thing that we can be doing better this year is, some stuff we did earlier in the year that we're not doing as much now, is just like kind of like actively posting about help on issues. A lot of us have been very heads down, working on the Lightning content and the guide. But I think we could get back to posting about like, hey, there's a good first issue here. Does somebody new want to work on this? Just kind of having that constant reminder when there's something that's good for a new contributor just really makes it clear to people how they can start contributing.
I was going to add a couple of things just very quickly. I think the FOSDEM conference talk presentation that Christoph and Johns gave earlier on in the year is a good introduction to anyone who knows nothing about open source design and knows nothing about Bitcoin open source design. I think that's a good introduction. So maybe that could be pinned somewhere a bit more prevalent. That's one. Second one is what's the second one? The second one is trying to bring in a pipeline of designers. I think there's been conversations around using like the Summer of Bitcoin project to try and do some of that stuff. It is a bit of it is quite a significant ask of people to become like mentors for that program. But I know there are some people who are quite interested in that, and it would be like the first time that there's like a design track for that program. The program's been like pretty viral from what I've seen and what I understand. So that's another good option. And then the last one is to also have designers included in hackathons. So in April at Bitcoin 2022, there's a dedicated hack space and open source stage. So there are hopefully going to be some projects around like BDK and LDK and other open source Bitcoin projects, I hope, and designers should look to try and be part of that event as well, if possible, or similar events of a similar nature. So I think those are three things that could be good to explore.
Yeah, hey, Christoph again here, speaking from the Bitcoin design account. So somebody joined the design Slack recently, and they said, "Hey, I have a branding background. I like strategy. I like storytelling, all of those things." And that's one of the things. People come in with all kinds of backgrounds. Some like illustrations or branding, copywriting, localization, illustration, 3D motion graphics, all kinds of interests and backgrounds. And that's one of the things that also makes it a little bit difficult sometimes to figure out, what can you actually do here? People talk about UTXOs and PSBTs, and it seems like it's a foreign language, but and it can be tricky, I think, as a new person to get past that too and figure out, which people, which projects have what going on, and which ones need some work, and what's a good match for you personally. I mean, generally, it's an open community, it's open source, it's open design. You can just start contributing to whatever you want, but it can actually be pretty kind of intimidating to find that place. And so me being pretty active, I find myself always trying to think about, how can what is that person looking for? Well, how can I help them with where they are and where they want to be, and just kind of not tell them what to do, because I don't think anybody comes in and it's like, okay, I'm here, assign me task 7, assign me a task to fix something here, and I'll have it fixed in 2 hours or so. Like, people are not here for just ticking off tasks, but they're here because they want, like, they're excited about Bitcoin, they love design, they're looking for a community, or just something interesting to do, and they're looking to learn. They have all kinds of different backgrounds, and so I think it's an important task for all the people who are around a lot to just kind of help match make a little bit. And I do think revising the website can also help with that, make the entry points a little bit easier. And I think it's important to kind of tell the big stories too. Like, why does design matter for Bitcoin? What is the role of design? How does a designer even work in this whole space? And I find those pretty good starting points as well. Just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I resonate with your words, Stefan, with your words, Christopher. Like the idea is to remove the intimidation part. And when you talk with a human, or when it's easier to start contributing, I think we can remove the fear and the intimidation part. Because what I saw sometimes is people join, but they don't know where to start. Because open source for every open source is new. It's something new for most of the people. Like false contributors are less than 1%. Then we have to make, I think if I feel the responsibility to make open source a welcoming for everyone. And that is not something complicated. Like, it's what people say. It's like, I don't know where to start. It's something that I've been listening in the Bitcoin space. Like, I don't know where to start. And then is where the Bitcoin core contributors start, like first issues. Like the first issues, I think it's a great point to start. And if we can sometimes maybe have maybe a channel for first contributions, and this is the list of things you can start. Yeah, of course, there is people who don't like to tell them what to do, but there is some people who need some guidance, and they want actually to tell them where they can start. There is so many different type of people. I agree with you on that. Thank you.
Alexa, I'm curious if you have any thoughts before we move on. I know you focus on accessibility a lot and trying to get folks who normally wouldn't feel like a sense of belonging in this community to feel more engaged. So I'm kind of curious about your thoughts.
Thanks for asking, Patricia. I think that that an entry point kind of pathway is a good thing that you're trying to work on. I'd like to think that it doesn't have to be a single approach, because some people may relate to the good first issue, but some people may already have something else that they want to help with. They just don't know how to do that. So, so I don't think there should be a single path of entry. And I think that's a beautiful thing about this community, that if we start focusing on working and helping people join the community a little bit more, then I'm sure that more ideas will come up on how to guide people to make contributions that they feel are meaningful to them. And sometimes a good first issue is a good way to begin, but sometimes it's also about learning what the community is about and trying to discover what it is that you want to contribute that will kind of add some sort of meaning to what you want to do in life and match up with the talents that you have. So I would say just keep an open mind and an open approach. And I'm glad that Dulce is also joining the team and trying to help people make a difference in this space.
Yeah, fully agree. I mean, I'm super happy Dulce has stepped up. And I think moving on, next year, I think it would be great for us to have a few point people in the community that folks could come to, and whether that manifests as like people have matches and can go to mentors, or whether it's just a few people that are open to having questions asked, or giving intros, quick video calls, whatever the case may be. I think Dulce would be a great person, but no pressure on her either. If anybody else wants to step up and sort of lead communities, whether it be calls like this, whether it be creating more media, maybe we just have intro videos that we're creating. We could work on that too, and I'm happy to get involved. So maybe we could have a small focus group just on how to get people more engaged in ways that make sense for them and bring meaning to their life. I think that's an excellent idea. Does anyone
Yeah,
else have any? Oh, Dulce, go ahead. There you go.
yeah, no, happy. And I think now with the spiral or spiral announcement, there is a new people coming. Maybe we can do a mixer for new members. Like I'm happy to host and to help, but I will be happy to listen to other people if they want to say something. Just I like to listen to other people's opinions and thoughts.
Hey, this is Adi here from Summer of Bitcoin. I just thought maybe I'll riff a little bit on the onboarding uh, piece that Dulce that you brought up in the beginning, and of course, um, sort of add to the thread that Connor mentioned around Summer of Bitcoin. So for those of you who may not be aware of what Summer of Bitcoin is, Summer of Bitcoin is sort of a summer internship program that we've introduced for university students around the world. The next iteration is going to be happening next summer, where we'll be inviting university students to work on several Bitcoin open source projects. And we have Bitcoin developers as mentors. And the other initiative that we want to do as a pilot is, of course, the design track that Connor spoke about, where we want some of the students having a design discipline to come and work on open source Bitcoin design. And one of the things around onboarding that I've been thinking about, onboarding students to Summer of Bitcoin that I've been thinking about, is essentially around helping them understand the fundamentals of Bitcoin so that they're better prepared when they get started on working on their projects. I mean, historically, there have been two ways of really grokking Bitcoin. Uh, One is, of course, going it in a very technical sense, immersing yourself in the technology and the engineering behind it. And that usually takes a lot of motivation. But what I'm seeing, you know, from Bitcoin to Design, the guide that you guys have so amazingly put up, there's the other way of understanding Bitcoin, which is from the point of view of the user and how they interact with Bitcoin in all sorts of ways in their own user journeys. And often, for most of the developers around the world, especially in various technology companies, and even for students who are developers themselves, that's usually a very intuitive way of understanding Bitcoin and how it works. And so, if there are any members in the community who, of course, want to mentor students on the design track, they're welcome to do so. But even beyond that, just mentoring really all students on Bitcoin fundamentals and helping them understand how it works and how it really applies to someone's user journey, that would be amazing. So if there are any members here who are interested in helping us out at Summer of Bitcoin toward onboarding students as they get ramped up on Bitcoin and prepare to work on their different projects, happy to have a talk outside of this call.
That would be amazing. I'm super happy you mentioned that because it is so true. I think a lot of people join the community not even really knowing much about Bitcoin. So it would help us too to have that material, and we could hopefully collaborate in some sort of way that helps multiple communities. That's amazing. Does anyone else have anything they want to add before we move on to our 2021 reflections?
Let's reflect.
Let's reflect. Let's do it. Christoph, did you want to start? I know in the newsletter, or maybe John's if he's here too. We had kind of a run through. If you guys haven't had a chance to see the newsletter or you haven't signed up yet, it's always a great resource to kind of get yourself started frequently with things you missed or you can't go to every meeting. It shows bullet points and kind of a run through. So there was a reflection, and maybe those who worked on the newsletter want to talk a bit about that if anybody's up for that. If not, I'm happy to run through it too.
Go for it. I wrote parts of the newsletter, so I don't want to talk about it. You should.
Okay. I just don't want to be talking the whole time, but I'm happy to. So just super quick, there was and anybody else jump in if you want to add anything we're missing or you have any personal reflections, things that you want to celebrate. This is just kind of a way for us to recap and think about what we want to do next year too. So we'll start with 2021 and then move on to our hopes for next year. So just reading off this list, we as a community launched the Bitcoin Design Guide version 1 and are almost done with version 2, which adds content around the Lightning Network. The second point, there were over 100 calls organized. The recordings are on YouTube and Bitcoin TV. Third, we discussed or got involved with many projects: an incomplete list, Albi, Blixt, Bitcoin Beach, Bitcoin Core, Bitcoin Smiles, The Biz, Breeze, BTC Pay, Hello Bitcoin, Hexa, Join Market, LDK and BDK, OpenSats, Phoenix, Revolt, Spectre, and Zeus. Fourth, we showed up strong at FOSDEM, Figma Config, Adopting Bitcoin, TabConf, and allowed PlebFi in there for me and Steven. There were a few others there too, and various other conferences and hackathons. Lastly, thank you for being awesome and part of the journey. If anyone wants to hop in with anything we missed, or if they want to elaborate on any of these points, you can just kind of talk about the year and celebrate it.
Hey everyone, Daniel here. Yeah, I'll jump in quickly and say that I was reflecting earlier with Christoph on about a year ago, we were talking about the domain name for the community, and it feels so long ago. And here we are, we launched the guide, which was a huge milestone, and now feels also quite a long time ago, and since been immersing ourselves in Lightning and bringing the guide up to speed on that. So I'm just saying, thank you to everybody who has been part of the journey that long or just joined recently. It's definitely moving along nicely, and it feels very fun to be part of this group. Thank you all.
I would just say, I think the community started a year and a half ago. I feel like the first half year was basically just set up, figuring out how this even works. And I remember early on, like I was completely new to this idea of, what you even do with the community, how people relate to each other, how you start a project, where projects come from. This idea that people propose ideas and throw them around, and other people join in, and it evolves through consensus and public collaboration into something much bigger. A lot of these mechanisms were completely new to me, so I think that was pretty awesome. And then that was the first half year for me, roughly, I think. And then this year, 2021, I think there was a lot of maturation happening. We found our place with a design guide, which is now the second version is coming up. I think we were pretty consistent with a lot of things like community calls and trying to kick off these collaborations with projects, and got a better idea of how all of these things work. There are other things like every project is unique. Every project starts at a different place. Some projects come in, they just kind of want some help. They say we have some specific UX problems we would like to discuss, and maybe the guide already addresses it, or maybe we have a session about it. Other project starts completely from scratch and say, hey, what does the design process even look like? So it was super interesting to work across in all of these different ways and get a better sense for it. And I do hope that for 2022, I do hope that like the majority of construction of the guide specifically is done, and then we can be much more public with collaboration, and many more projects can rely on it and help improve it. And maybe we can do more workshops. We can do design review reading or design guide reading groups, and just work with a lot more people. I mean, for me, the end goal is always to make the Bitcoin user experience, just improve it in any way that we can possibly can. There are a million ways to do that, and I hope over the next year we find a lot more ways to help with all the little things, but also some of the bigger things.
What about, I don't know, if people can think of what's their most meaningful or most useful moment of the year?
I think we need to pick somebody. That's a scary question. Steven, what do you think?
Oh, the most meaningful or the most of the year? The most meaningful moment?
Most meaningful or most useful, depending on which one you'd like to speak on.
Yeah, I mean, that is a scary, complicated whatever kind of question. Yeah, I mean, the most meaningful for me was probably just, accidentally, for me personally, it was probably just accidentally stumbling across the design community on GitHub one day, and being like, holy shit, I want to do this. Um, you know, probably most meaningful for the community at large is probably the launch of V1 of the guide, I would suppose. Um, you know, the most useful, I mean, that's kind of hard to pin that down into to just one single thing, but the one that kind of stands out the most to me is, I don't know. I mean, there's a couple things. I mean, I like seeing stuff like, the Bitcoin icons kit start as a Figma file and then turn into a node module and then get turned into a Vue and React module. And, that was really kind of cool, just kind of taking the design and turning it into a reusable library. I guess kind of another, meaningful thing for me, or, I guess meaningful moment is I was at one of the, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 Bitcoin conferences I've been to this year. I don't know, this stuff's getting ridiculous. But I got separated from the group of friends I was walking with due to a traffic light mishap, and I ended up on the other side of the road from everybody, and I just accidentally bumped into a VC in the space, and I recognized them and they recognized me, and we start chatting. They're like, "Oh yeah, you work on the design guide, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, this, a lot of us working on it." And they're like, that's really cool. I actually have all of my portfolio companies, look at that guide." And I was like, "Oh wow, that's pretty incredible." So that's kind of one of the things that stuck out for me, just kind of hearing like, "Oh yeah, people are actually reading the stuff and using it and all that." So that was cool.
Thank you, Stephen. Sorry to put you on the spot there.
It's all good. You get a rambling answer when you put me on the spot.
Oh, that's okay. I think those are the special moments that make the community, Yeah.
How about you, Alexa? What's your answer to that one? Curious.
Well, I think for me, I think the most meaningful thing is that we're able to connect with one another across multiple countries and talk about something that we all value, but see it from different perspectives. And so it's always interesting to see the ideas that people come up with and how there's this kind of virtuous loop of feedback that people are there to kind of support you and try and figure out how to improve on things, and that it isn't this sort of warring space or something like that, everyone's just trying to improve on Bitcoin and make it more accessible to everyone. So that to me is the most meaningful thing. And I don't know, as far as useful goes, I think I'm starting to think that the most useful thing is to have a community. That if we didn't have a community, we wouldn't be able to bring projects together and make a difference in people's lives. I think that that would be my answer. Is there anyone else out there who'd like to join the conversation and share what's meaningful and useful? I don't like picking people.
And feel free to raise your hand too if you're just a listener who wants to participate too. Everyone is welcome to talk. We will definitely select you if we can. So everyone's welcome here.
I want to share something meaningful. When I started Bitcoin, I was the only woman in the room. I was the only Latina, and when I see more women in the room or more people of color, like I always say thank you. Like the day I talk with Haley or with Patricia, like these days for me, like, oh, I'm talking with other women and also with other underrepresented or minorities. Like for me, this is beautiful because I know we are doing a good job in terms of community and diversity. That for me, I want to say thank you for all the women and people of color who are bringing other women or other people of color. Thank you.
I'd also love that as on my wish list for 2022, more focus on inclusion, accessibility, diversity.
Totally. And on that note, if anybody else has a wish list or something they're really excited about for next year, they want to see happen, let's get to that. We have some time. So anybody who hasn't spoken can speak. People who have spoken can speak. Let's just get to it. What do we want to do next year? What are we excited about?
Daniel here. I was following up on the earlier talk about Spanish. I'm not really affected by the site only being available in English, so maybe we should do some more research on this before we jump in. But I think it should definitely be a question mark for us in 2022. Should we start translating the guide? I know it's a huge lift, and it's not a one-time thing. You have to keep, changing the translation as you update pages. But there's a big world out there that doesn't speak English that should have access to Bitcoin. So it's definitely on the list for me.
Yeah, I love this idea, Daniel. And I love the idea so much that also I have a question. Should we translate the guide, or should we allow a Spanish speaker to create their guide in their own way? It's interesting. Yeah, but I love the idea, Daniel.
I want to do like more workshops and stuff in 2022. Both in person with our meetup group in Atlanta, as well as like with the design community and online. I just I love the community aspect and all of that, but also sometimes I think about these things in terms of like we're creating like a funnel, and the funnel has to lead somewhere. Like it, ultimately, like if we're trying to like improve the UX of Bitcoin, then we're trying to like bring more designers in the space, show them how to work on Bitcoin, and help them find jobs at Bitcoin companies or help them make contributions to open source Bitcoin products. So like, how do you create a funnel that makes that happen? And I think that an important kind of step in that funnel is going to be workshops that provide, like really practical things. So, one of these, an example of that could just be like, a basic kind of Figma thing of like constructing a Bitcoin related user flow in Figma. Another type of workshop could be something, that involves like, using the, Bitcoin icons kit or something like that and integrating that into a React project. Something, more on the developer side could be something like, downloading an LDK, some kind of like LDK template or something like that. And, trying to craft a front end for, like a basic wallet template, something like that. But I think there needs to be like more just like kind of hands-on workshops. And, these things could be, stuff you attend in real life, or they could be stuff that you attend virtually, or they could be stuff that you watch on, YouTube after the fact or something like that. But I just think this kind of like educational how-to content that teaches somebody how to kind of get started working on a project is going to be pretty powerful, because you see these kinds of videos and stuff online for like, JavaScript kind of stuff, like, oh, how to use, Vue or React or something like that to, build a to-do list or something like that. So I kind of want to see like the Bitcoin equivalent of that in 2022.
Well, Stephen, I hear you and I are going to be doing a BitDevs in New York in February or in the upcoming year, so we'll definitely make that happen. And Infinite Bit,
Oh,
I noticed you jumped in here too. So
thanks for
Stephen,
letting me know I'm going to New York, I guess.
at some point, we're going to make it happen. We're going to have you do a workshop. I totally agree. I think like meeting people in person or just letting them know like that they're wanted and having projects that we can do together. It's a different level of welcoming people than just kind of offering the channels and letting them do it on their own. But Infinite Bit, if you want to add anything.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's 8-Bit. How are y'all doing?
Oh, 8-Bit. I thought that was Infinity. 8-Bit.
Yeah. Wow. The design guide is unfucking real. I have spent the last week digesting it. Just hat tip to everyone who's created it and participated and built it. I mean, just an unbelievable resource. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't know if I have so many different thoughts, but I'm retired fully on the Bitcoin standard, but as a software engineer, I have a lot of time to build cool products, and I'm building one product. And I love this idea of building Bitcoin into everything. I think I think that's the future. I think that's why all of us are here. But a lot of, and I see this convergence going to happen where Bitcoin specific products will somehow merge kind of into the masses. And so a lot of folks will not even know that it's Bitcoin powered. And I'm trying to build Bitcoin into my existing communication tool. And so I'm just learning so much from the way that you guys think, and it's so fantastic. I think I think that's what I would like to see. I feel like there's a lot of language around specifically designing Bitcoin products, but I think in the future, a lot of folks that line will become blurred, where Bitcoin will just become part and parcel of so much of what we do, or that's the hope. So I guess I just want to encourage you all to keep going, and I want to see how I can help. So I'm here because I'm a software engineer. I'm not a designer, so I've always needed help from very creative, artistic folks. So I'm just so grateful to be here. Thanks so much.
That's so awesome. I'm curious what you're most excited about. If you had to pick one thing, I know it's overwhelming. If you had to pick one thing for next year that designers could do, or that you're hoping for, that will be magical to see, what would you hope for?
I think all of us know that the challenge isn't convincing people that they need to save and that to make more money for their children and family. That's kind of an easy sell. The thing that I've struggled, and I've made a lot of my time building is onboarding. Is how do we help people onboard an orange pill, but in an empathetic, design-centric way? And how do we make that really, 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 really fast? And so I'm really excited about kind of the onboarding, the user research, the life cycle stuff that you guys have built out, and just to see more folks having that as part of their design process in the very early stages of product design development, to say, hey, I'm building, fill in the blank product, but we have to consider Bitcoin as the future, and how can we make sure that they're encounter Bitcoin as part of the onboarding process. And I think, man, in making that beautiful, operable, fast. That I'm really excited about that. I think that's how we're going to win, is beautifully designed products that are fast and efficient, but that also teach the more valuable truths of life. So, so much, but thank you.
Thank you. Well, we need you, so stay around here. Stephen, go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, and I hear you 8-Bit about the the fact that Bitcoin is just going to kind of blend into people's daily lives in the future, and they won't even be people won't even think about them as being Bitcoin products. I think and you're right. We need to think about that think through that lens a little bit. We've kind of had this focus on the guide right now, just being okay, we're just to get things rolling. We're just going to focus on basically focusing on non-custodial Lightning mobile wallets. How do you build a good mobile wallet for a phone with a Lightning? But yeah, we're definitely hoping to branch out into more stuff. Patricia's already kind of working on content focused more on from a merchant point of view, point of sale, I suppose. So she can speak more to that. And then I think as time goes on and Bitcoin just kind of becomes more soaked into people's lives. We'll just have to be thinking about these user experiences, more broadly from many different touch points, not just from mobile wallets.
Most definitely. Most definitely. Anyone else have anything they want to share, whether it be the previous question, a reflection from this year, or something they're looking forward to?
I want to share something beautiful that all the people who we went to Salvador, it was beautiful to see a lot of people using the different wallets that we've been like everybody have like a different call with Zeus wallet, like Moon, like everybody was talking about all the products that I read in this Slack. It was like from getting out of a Slack and was like real, like everybody was different using so many different wallets. That was a good memory that I have about in Salvador. It was so beautiful. I think Stefan uh, can say the same. Like a lot of wallets in Salvador, people using all the things that we've been reading from the last years or last 2 years in pandemic. That for me was super nice. It was like real.
Yeah, it was pretty rad. It was pretty crazy actually seeing the stuff work in real life. Talking about hypotheticals all the time, and just like, like, well, if this was your daily spending wallet, how would it work? Da, da, da. And then it's like, you go to, El Zante, and there's like, 200 people at the festival, just like all using, 20 different wallets, and like somehow it all works.
Miguel, did you want to share anything? You've had a couple, I think one of their spaces that you were asking some great questions. I'd love to get your thoughts on this year, next year.
Yeah, I'm personally really excited to see what impact the now rebranded block and Spiral have on this space, especially going along with the topic of onboarding, excuse me, and accessibility. Um, I know we all really love the Puppet Jack video. I think uh, that brought up a lot of new designers and people interested in the design space and in this specific design community into the Slack, from every corner of not just Bitcoin, but even people who've been working on crypto now even more interested in focusing on Bitcoin specifically. I don't know if there's anything we would be able to learn from Spiral, from Block, or any other way that we could even collaborate in a more direct way to help us improve on that accessibility and onboarding. I think is pretty exciting.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we may have some people on the team in the call, so maybe later you guys could have a conversation, or we could have them share maybe at some point next year too. That would be awesome. Kind of maybe updates or what they're working on. Anyone else?
I'd be just generally interested. I'm sorry if I'm speaking out of turn.
You're good. You're good. Go for it.
Just to hear, thank you, what folks are like independently working on. I'm kind of I can be pretty obtuse sometimes, but when I hear other folks and what kind of their entrepreneurial creative minds are obsessing about, whether it's related to Bitcoin or not, but most of us are probably like so obsessed with Bitcoin, that's all kind of what we think about. But just what what your personal goals are and your personal aspirations for 2022, any personal side projects or creative art pieces. I don't know. Just yeah, I would love to hear what folks are personally doing, and how they're planning out their 2022, if that even makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, like personally, I would love to do more volunteering, more open source work. I think that there's a merchant section I would love to dedicate more time to, language accessibility on the design guide, but of course it's all Bitcoin focused. Though I think Bitcoin has this ability to make you think about connecting with others in the world around you more. So trying to like make that connection deeper and spend more time with people in the community and making real connections that aren't focused on necessarily even projects or work or just getting to know people on personal levels, making good quality friends in Bitcoin and otherwise, outside of the community.
Bitcoin open source work keeps me pretty busy personally, but I have a short animated film that I've been working on with some close friends. It's completely unrelated to Bitcoin, but if I manage to carve out some free personal time in 2022, I might get back to that project. We've been building kind of a trailer proof of concept thing for that, and then might eventually, if we try to actually execute on the thing for real, try to do a crowdfunding type scenario. But that's all the fantasy dream. Like I said, Bitcoin open source work is pretty time consuming for me at the moment.
Any others? If not, I'll move on to seeking feedback and anyone else who is wanting feedback that's not listed here. We can get into that. We just have a few more minutes. So if anyone else has anything on this, go for it. If not, I will move on.
I just wanted to share one thought here. It's with all of these ideas that were brought up here, nobody has to ask for permission. Anybody can just start anything. It's meant to be an open community, and you might see that there's a group of people who are just constantly active. In one way or another, they found a way to make that, like me and Steve, and then some other people. That's kind of what we do full time, but that doesn't mean that we have more say or should decide on anything that happens. So all of these ideas, just kick things off, and a lot of times it's best to just start by a conversation. It doesn't have to start with you don't have to come up with a huge project plan or come up with the perfectly thought out concept. You can just start things through conversations or a call or throwing out some rough ideas. So I would just invite anybody who's mentioned some ideas or wishes here to just start small and just keep at it. And it's surprising what you can make happen with continuous dedication to something, even if it's in small bits, but over time.
Yeah, I totally echo that. There's not really that many rules other than being nice and like working hard on Bitcoin projects. Everyone's ideas are super valuable, so I'd encourage people in the upcoming year to just throw it out there. And if people aren't into it, then no one's going to pick it up. But if they are, it could be an amazing project that we wouldn't know otherwise. So super happy Christoph brought that up. Is anybody?
I know.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, just one more thought. I know that there are some topics like accessibility or so. They don't come up very often. And when they come up, sometimes it's like, well, why does nobody care about this? Or so. And I saw that recently again with a tweet. It's like, nobody in Bitcoin cares about accessibility or so. And it's really unfortunate. But sometimes it just takes one person to kick that off and kind of be obnoxious and start conversations about it and make things happen and push everybody else a little bit. So if somebody feels like, they're not getting a lot of feedback where it's like an endless battle or so, I would encourage them to still keep pushing at it.
And I don't think it's that people don't care, but that they may be focused on something else right now. So if there's something out there that really kind of speaks to you, this is the sort of community where you can walk in and kind of make it happen. So so I encourage any of you to add a little bit of that light that you have within and those talents that you carry with you, and improve on the project and something that you find meaningful or that kind of goes with who you are.
Yep, I totally agree. We have a few more minutes, so if anybody here has any feedback that they're seeking or help that they're wanting, we can quickly have it in here. If not, I can announce a couple of things that were covered in the newsletter. So if anyone is looking for feedback, feel free to ask for it here.
I apologize. When you say ask for feedback, can you be a little more specific?
Absolutely. So here's an example. In the newsletter, by the way, I'll shill it. If anybody isn't already subscribing, go for it. So here's an example. Seeking feedback, it's just a quick bullet point. NFC in Bitcoin has gotten a resurgence of interest now. Sending and receiving Lightning payments offline via wristband or sticker is a thing. Zeus Wallet added NFC support in their latest release. So we're asking people to check it out, give the team some feedback. That would be a quick example. So if you have any projects or things where you're hoping the community can help you out, perfect opportunity to shill your project.
Oh man. If you're opening the door, I might take one step through. I'm building a communication platform. I know there are so many, but one of the things that I've done from the very beginning is attack this particular project from a first principles perspective, and honestly just copy a lot of the principles of Bitcoin, things like censorship resistance, pseudonymity, et cetera, et cetera. And on my personal roadmap for the project is deeper. It's just more integration with Bitcoin. I have like a GitHub issue that I'm working on, just adding the ability to send and receive Bitcoin and just copy pasta the Bitcoin address. And so I guess I would just love to hear. I'm sorry, I don't think I'm even framing a question. I'm sorry, I'm just going to shut up for a second. But
No, we
my
definitely want to hear
ADHD is
about it.
going off.
You should post something in Slack and see if people want to hop on, because I'm following you, but we have literally 1 minute. So
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I want to hear more. Definitely hit it up on Slack in the general so we can all help you out. But thanks to everyone for coming. And if anyone has any closing thoughts in 1 minute, might shut us off. I don't know. Thanks, you guys.
There'll be no shut off. You can keep chatting here. It's all good.
We can keep going. So if anyone wants to stay or have any closing remarks, let's do it.
Well, I'd like to, elaborate a little bit on what Christoph was just saying about how, if there's a, project, something that you really want to, see done in Bitcoin that nobody's doing, you can just start it. You don't need to ask for permission. And so just, provide some, concrete examples of how you might, go about doing that. So let's say just, there could be many different things you want to see happen, but let's just say, your issue is accessibility and you want to make that happen. So, maybe what you do is you're approaching it from the perspective of, well, I want to see more accessibility content in the guide. So maybe you write up a quick outline of that and put it in a Google Doc, and then you share it in the Slack channel and ask for feedback. And that would be, one way of starting off that process. Or maybe another way of starting off that process is you're like, hey, I'm really, want to discuss this, and I want to, get like a working group together to work on this. So, we have like a Jitsi for Bitcoin design. So you might say it's just kind of a public room. So you might say, okay, I want to, have a conversation about this at this day and this time, in the Jitsi room, and just go ahead and post about it and say, hey, I'll be in Jitsi, this day and this time if anybody wants to talk about this topic with me, and just start a meeting. There's many other ways you could do it, but there's just two examples of concrete ways if you want to kind of start your own project within Bitcoin design. Those are examples of how you might get that process started.
A classic John's move, just to have Jitsi open for over 20 hours or something crazy. But yeah, no, it's true. I mean, oftentimes just being available is the biggest thing. Just being open to chat and have a conversation. It's a lot more casual than people think.
And another concrete way of getting that started, to kind of channel Pavlinek's here, is to go on GitHub and open an issue. But I say that as the last one because for most people, probably just hopping on Jitsi or just pasting a Google Doc into a Slack channel or even to Twitter even is probably the easiest, most accessible way to kind of get that process rolling.
Most definitely. And I think that's pretty much it. So we're kind of just hanging out if anybody wants to add anything. I'm happy to stick around, but it's been an awesome year and just thank you everyone for being here and being present for everyone. I can't wait to see what we do next year. It's going to be awesome.
Yes, and we'll have a recording of this call, and then we can listen back to it next year and put a comment track on it and see see what actually ended up happening.
I love that idea. We should definitely do it.
Here's a question for anyone who's going to stick around. I think I've been able to formulate it. Sorry, my ADHD is just going off crazy. What would you recommend for those who have already begun building, who have built a product already, and where would you recommend they start? Outside of obviously just reading the documentation, but they've got a working product and they want to create a much more tighter convergence between what they've done and Bitcoin. Building software is very difficult. It's a lot of work, and so to not to sacrifice the work that's already been done, but from all y'all experience around design, like, and have you seen patterns of best practices of, hey, like, just adding a link to your Bitcoin address? Like, is that the easiest way, or what have you guys seen work really well in terms of taking an existing product and navigating more to a Bitcoin-centric design system, if that even makes sense?
That's a deep question. Were you about to say something, Christoph? Sorry.
Yes, no, maybe. Yeah, I wasn't quite sure on what you mean by Bitcoin-centric application, but a common thing if you have an existing product is just to evaluate it, what you have, and especially the what users are doing with it. If there is a user base, and talking closely to them and seeing how it works for them, why they use it, and then match it again against your own ideas and your own goals. And I think that usually leads you fairly quickly towards what's working and what's not working. And if there's a big difference between why people use it and why you think it's useful, then it's maybe good to take a step back. But if you have something, the best place to start is by just removing kind of your own ideas, your own emotion away from it a little bit, and just seeing what its current place in the world is and how the world sees it. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to be more specific because I don't totally understand the idea of moving it towards a more Bitcoin-centric direction. If you could expand on that a little bit, I think it'd be helpful.
Yeah, I think I have a lot of engineering friends who are into Bitcoin, and a common, kind of, we opine, like, a lot of us have products in the space or more indie apps and smaller time things, smaller communities. And so, a lot of us have been orange pilled post, starting to build the product. And so it's like, oh shit, like, if we had like this design system beforehand, we could have, attached these at a more principal fundamental level. And so, outside of just ripping the foundation apart,
it sounds to me like you're kind of struggling with the having an existing product or application, like something that's already been coded, and like wanting to make substantial changes to that.
Yeah, I don't want to be dramatic, right? And just be like, oh, fuck the last 4 or 5 years of work. Like, it's just, yeah, exactly. Like, how do we lightly introduce these concepts in a way that's functional and pragmatic, right? I want, like, for instance, I have this communication product, and I've been orange pilled. I live on the Bitcoin standard. I'm technically retired, but I still work. And if I have this small but passionate community around Bitcoin. And so it's like, well, what is the smallest way from a product design perspective that I can introduce a feature that helps them kind of accelerate their learning around it? Is it just adding a simple wallet address? Or is that just too basic? So this might be a little bit too high level. I'm really sorry if this is not as pragmatic, but yeah, just beginning to really think through this.
I actually think this would be an awesome opportunity to do a design review if you have something you've already been working on. I mean, just talk to Connor and message him,
awesome.
and like people are super happy to sit there for 30 minutes, an hour, or whatever, and you could just say like, what do you guys think about this idea? What can we do? And we could talk through it and have a super focused meeting. I think that's a great idea. I personally would love to learn more.
Yes, same.
Yeah, Sam, to Christoph's point, yeah, I mean, like figure out like what your users want, like what they're actually trying to achieve, because it's going to be, that the answer to that question is going to vary for different products and for different demographics. But I mean, I think that's definitely a good start. And then like, another way of thinking about it is like, we've seen some projects that like to do these like ground up rebuilds or something. Like, an example of that is like Zeus is just going through this ground up rebuild of their user interface right now, with Evan Kalutis and Bosch are collaborating on that, right? But and so some projects do these like really dramatic changes like that, where they and like, as a developer, Evan was very comfortable with the idea that he wanted to completely rebuild the user interface. And then I've also have other projects. I have a friend engineer who constantly uses the term low hanging fruit when he's talking about trying to adjust the user experience of things. So that like sometimes, you have a user experience problem, and like maybe you don't need to just completely rebuild everything. Maybe there's like one simple tweak that you can change, that just by changing this one simple thing, you've dramatically improved how people, interact with your product. So sometimes there are these like low hanging fruit situations where you don't need to just completely rebuild everything. And it's, not really like an easy answer that I think is applicable to all products or to all projects. But, I think both of those scenarios or workflows are valid.
It's actually interesting. I'm not sure if this product has anything to do with Bitcoin even in the first place. It could be something completely different. Maybe, I don't know, a website where you buy T-shirts or something. And then how could you introduce this to Bitcoin to something like that? That's a totally different question than if it is already a Bitcoin related product. And for something that has nothing to do with Bitcoin, I think something interesting would be to logging in with Lightning using WebLN, having that as a separate option, which could give privacy benefits. And then if that's already the case, if it's a paid service, you could offer then also payment with Lightning on top of that. And those would be just alternate options to what's already there. So somebody who has nothing to do with Bitcoin, they could just ignore it, right? But then maybe some of those people would be curious about what those options are and what benefits they bring.
And I don't think you can ever feel bad about something you've built, because it gives you a great amount of experience. And I think all products grow over time. So I would say feel proud of what you've built, and maybe try to make priorities of what you'd like to change first, and not focus on like the end product of what you want to be, but focus on the small steps that you can take to improve on your product.
Guys, I gotta run, but this was awesome, and I can't wait to do a design review on it. I'll see you later. Bye.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for hosting, Patricia. Then let's just wrap up for the day. thanks everybody for joining. Thanks for the good conversation, and feel free to join the Slack, which you can find at bitcoindesigners.org, I think. We're also good just to Bitcoin Design, and then we can just continue the conversation there. And I hope we make all of this stuff happen in the next year that we discussed here. Would be awesome. But for now, thanks everyone, and talk to you soon.
Catch you later.